Okay, so what was your question?
So at f of x, you have 1/2 minus 2. So what they give you 1.5, and what you have to multiply that by, or negative 1.5 and multiply
No,
that
let me start back over here. So they asked me for this. My recommendation to you is to start with the inside. Just treat that like it's a separate problem. So what is g of 1/2? So 1 divided by 1/2, and we talked about 50 cents goes into $1 twice. So what we just transformed this into was f of 2. We're simplifying it a piece at a time. So now I'm taking the 2, and it is now going to be an input value into this. So 2 minus 1 over 2. And that's where we get the 1.5 or the 3 over 2. Okay, now tell me again what you were thinking. Were you thinking there was some sort of multiplication involved?
Yeah, because when I see f in the...
Okay, so I think what you're getting it confused with is one notation that we used to use in Algebra 2 that looked like this. That means that you're going to plug 1/2 into both f and g, and then after you do that, then you're going to multiply those values together. A similar notation would be f of 1/2 times g of 1/2. So these notations mean the same thing, but they do not mean what we're talking about when we do a composition. A composition basically starts by taking the value in there, putting it into that. Once you find that value, then you just keep moving as you work your way out. Okay? You're right. There is a notation for multiplication. This is just a composition. Oops. Question 43. The formula to estimate the monthly payment P dollars on a short-term loan is where A dollars is the amount of the loan and R is the annual interest rate expressed as a decimal. Y is the years and the length of the loan. When A is multiplied by 2, what is the effect on P? All right. When A gets multiplied by 2, what happens to P? Now, what I'd like you to tell me, do you see a greatest common factor between the two red boxes? Do you see something in common that you can pull out of those two red boxes? 2A. 2A. They both have a 2A. Or maybe I should just pull out a 2. Maybe I should leave the A alone. That's probably a wise strategy, and we'll see why here in a second. If I pull that 2 out, I would have 2 times 1/2 ARY plus A, and on the bottom I would have 12Y. Can you tell me what's in the green box? And no, I don't want you to read what's in the green box. I want you to tell me what it is. Give me one letter that equals that green box. P. You see it right there, don't you? So what's in front of it? 2. Answer choice D. P is multiplied by 2. And it was all a matter of factoring out the common factor 2. Okay, the points E 6, 4, and 14, 12 lie in the standard XY plane. Point D lies on EF between E and F such that the length of EF is 4 times the length of DE. Okay, so I'm estimating, folks. I really am. D is between E and F, but the whole thing is 4 times longer than DE. Okay. The length of EF, yeah, the whole thing is, okay. What'd you do with this?
14 minus 6 and then divided by 8 then it makes it be equal 8 to the 6 or 8 6. Yeah, like that. But then you have to divide.
So, tell me again, slow motion, what'd you do there?
And 14 minus 6, so then that means the distance in between them on the bottom, like horizontally, yeah, is 8.
So, big green triangle has 8 on the bottom. Yep.
And then since it says it's 4x, the whole entire thing is x, and then I did 8 4x, which makes x 2. So then I know.
Okay. So, you're saying that this is 4x,
Yeah.
just like this is 1x.
And then
Okay.
you figure out that x equals 2.
And from 12 to,
So then, yeah, so then you just like,
so from 12 to 4, you said that was 8 also.
uh,
Or did you need that?
you don't need that.
You don't need that. Because you eliminated down to the right answer by using, what did you use?
I just did like 4x equals 8. So then
4x equals 8. Now, how do I know that?
actually, wait now. Because like 8 is the distance of the thing, right?
8 is the distance. You think 8 is the distance on the hypotenuse of that?
Oh, wait. Can I show you?
Yeah, show me.
Well, there's like 8 cubes in between it.
Ah,
Because
okay, but because it's on a diagonal, you can't do that.
I can't.
No. Now, it might end up being the right answer. It might. Can we do... Now, can we do similar triangles? Can we do... What else can we do here?
Could you subtract, 14, 6, and then 12, and 4, and then divide by 4, and then that would give you 8 and 6,
Okay.
because that's the fourth of...
So you're saying if you take the distance from here to here, which is 8 units, and cut it into 4, then that means that this bottom edge has to be 2.
Yeah.
Because if you're taking a fourth of this, then you're basically taking a fourth of the bottom edge too. Okay? Now, this is why it's working for you. Because the distance along that hypotenuse is not 8. But along the bottom edge, we're saying you're splitting this up into 4 pieces. That 8, you're splitting it up into 4 pieces. So that means this little triangle right here with the blue sides is a 2 by 2. And that's 8. When you say 8 cubes, you are drawing along the diagonal. And that is not, to be quite honest, this diagonal is 8 radical 2. Because it's a 45, 45, 90 right triangle. Because of the 8 by 8. Okay, so that's why your logic kind of didn't make sense, but it ended up being okay because you can take the bottom edge, divide it into fourths, you get 2, and you can do the same thing with the other side, and that is going to give you 8, 6. Because you are going to go 2 to the right and 2 up from 6, 4. Okay, so Given that A times the first matrix equals the second matrix for some real number A, okay, what does that mean? Can we figure out what A is?
13.
No. Okay, now, what you might have seen before is matrix multiplication. This isn't really matrix multiplication. This is called scalar multiplication. You take the number that's on the outside and you multiply it times every element inside the matrix. So that means we're talking 2A, 6A, 1A, 4A. And that is equal to X, 27, Y, and Z. Now there's only one combo out of here that I can use to find A. And it's that one right there. So 6A is equal to 27. What does that mean about A? It's 4.5. I think you said 9/2. Same thing, right? Okay, so 4.5. Now you have enough information to figure out what X is, right? Because X is 2 times that amount. So X is 9, right? Because we're taking 2 times 4.5 to get X. And Y is actually equal to 4.5, right? Oh, but they wanted Z. I'm sorry. They wanted Z. I'm wasting my time. So 4 times 4.5, that gives me 18. So Z is 18. And so if they want me to add those two together, I do get 27. So yeah, that might be an introduction to for some of you to scalar multiplication with matrices.
What would you use that for?
Matrices are used to organize a lot of information. You have seen matrices in your life. They're called spreadsheets. That's kind of an application of those. But you can take large amounts of information and combine them together. And based on the idea of rows and columns, we can tell a computer to take large amounts of information, put it together, and put it in a format so we can organize it. Yes. Yes, yes. So this is called the first row, first column entry. If these two matrices are equal, and it guarantees me they are, then these two entries have to be the same. Same thing for every other element in the matrix. So I had to use the 6A and the 27 to figure out what A was, and then I could work my way around to find the other parts. A container is 1/8 full of water. Okay, so it's 1/8 of the total full right now. After 10 more cups are added, the container is now 3/4 of the total. What is the volume of the container in cups? Is there a number we can multiply everything by to get rid of those fractions? Maybe a common denominator. 8 would be a great choice. So if I take 8 times 1/8 x, what do I get? Should get just plain old x, right? 1x. Ah, yes, cha. 8 times 10, 80. Okay, 8 times 3/4 x. Let's see, 4 goes into 8 how many times? 2 times 3. 6x. Okay, all we're doing is, doing the division first and then the multiplication second. So then we can subtract the x to the other side. 80 equals 5x. And divide by 5. What is x? 16.
Wait, how do you get the 5x again?
I subtracted 1x from the left side over to the right side. Just got my x's together. I mean, not a lot of people want to put their exes together, at least not in one room. Only 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students attend Washington High School. Very progressive. They leave the freshmen in the middle school. Well, I mean, if you look at them, aren't they just tall junior hires? You know,
Yes.
they do. They kind of remind me of, big junior high kids. But true, age is just a number. You're right. The ratio of the 10th graders to the school's total student population is 86 to 255. The ratio of the 11th graders to the school's total population is 18 out of 51. So we got 86 out of 255 and 18 out of 51. Does 51 go into 255? How many times? How about 5 times?
Yeah.
So that would be 90 out of 255. If one student is chosen at random from the entire school, which grade is that student most likely to be in? Okay, so what is 255 take away 90, take away 86? 255 take away 90, take away 86. 70 what? 79. Can I get a witness on that from someone else?
Yeah.
You're not even typed. Did you type it?
Yeah, I know.
Kind of.
Well, I know.
I got all grades.
Okay, so what grade are we most likely? 11th graders?
11.
Yeah, it would be.
Could you just divide the things right off the bat and then like add the two?
Divide the things. Okay, I need to know what the things
Divide
are.
the ratios, so you get like decimals, and then you see the decimals, and then you add them together, and see.
That is another strategy. Yes, we could do that too.
Oh, wait. Oh, I thought they would be like all equal. Because I thought if it's like most likely to be the end, it's like the majority, and neither of them, like none of the three are the majority.
Okay, they didn't say the majority. Okay, they just said the most likely. Okay, that does not mean it has to be over 50%. Okay, it just which one has the highest probability of happening. Okay, that's what. But yes, the decimal versions of that. Some people like to deal with whole numbers. Some people go straight for the decimals. It would work to go with the decimals as well. All right, now don't overthink this. So let's see here. We got to get common denominators. What's the common denominator between radical 2 and radical 3? Radical 6. All right, so what are we going to multiply? We're going to multiply this one by radical 3, top and bottom, right? So that's 4 radical 3 over radical 6. Then we're going to multiply this one by radical 2, top and bottom. 2 radical 2 over radical 6. Do we have a winner so far?
Yeah.
What is our winner? Letter G. Notice that they did not rationalize the denominator. They did not waste their time.
Wait, can you do that again?
Sure. See if I can get it. Be about the right size. We had to basically multiply the denominators to the other one
Oh,
to get common denominators.
and then you just add the ones that are.
And then just add the ones on top. Obviously the bottom has the same denominator. Shaded region in the graph below represents the solution set to which of the following systems Okay, so what are you going to do? How are you going to change this sign right here to say that you want ins? Yes. What is that equation that they're showing me?
The circle.
It's the circle. So it's based on the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The most generic form of a circle looks like this, where h and k represent the center of the circle, right? So somewhere right around in there. Okay, in this case it's 1, 2. You can see that we're dealing with the center being at 1, 2. But that is the equation of the circle, and it's based on the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. R represents the radius. Yeah, I guess if you haven't seen that before, that might be a little bit confusing. Okay, so what do you do to this equal sign right here to say that you want to shade inside the circle, but you want the outside of the circle to be a dotted circle? What do you change that symbol to? Yeah, I need an inequality. Which one? Do you think that less than would go inside and greater than would go outside?
Yeah.
You are correct. Okay? And it doesn't have the equal to because it's dashed, right? Okay, now, the other one. What are you going to do with that sign right there? You want a dashed line and you want to shade below the line. You want that also to be a less than as well. So, do we have a choice like that? It looks like A, doesn't it? That is so nice. That's all we needed to do was change the sign to indicate what we saw in the picture. Okay, so we can find the irregularly shaped solid object, the volume, by submerging it in water. Calculating the water of the object displaces, you completely submerge a solid object in a rectangular tank that has a base 40 by 30. Okay, oops, I probably should start up top. Okay, so 40 by 30. And is filled to a depth of 20 centimeters. Not drawn to scale, folks. Now, the object sinks to the bottom and the water level goes up 0.25 centimeters. So the reality is I need 40 by 30 by 0.25 because that's all I care about is the change in the height of the water level. And since they were kind enough to give that to me, all I need to do is multiply 40 by 30. Let's see, that's 1,200, and then I want a quarter of that. A quarter of 1,200 is how much? 300. Any questions on that one? We just needed length times width times height, basically.
So you don't have to.
So that 20 that they threw in there didn't really mean anything to me. It started out at 20 and it went up to 20.25.
Yeah.
Big hairy deal. You told me it went up a quarter. That's really what I needed to know. I thought when they told me it was 20, they were going to then tell me how much it went up to, and then I was going to have to subtract those. And, so I thought I was going to have to use that information, but they went ahead and then told me, hey, it went up by 0.25.
So it's 1,200.
Right? 1,200 times a quarter.
Okay.
So that one actually wasn't too bad. As we're nearing the end, obviously they're starting to get more difficult. So if x to y, so we want a ratio of x to y to z so that we can find this one. So if x to y is 5 to 2, and y to z is 3 to 2, you know the dumb answer that they should have put up there? 5 to 2. That should have been in the list, but they didn't even give that one to you. That would have been, I'm sure people would have gone down on that one, but just not knowing what to do. We got to connect these things together right here. So, in other words, the idea of a common denominator is coming into play. So, what are we going to multiply by? Okay, so we're going to multiply that one by 3, which makes it 15 to 6. And the other one would be multiplied by 2, and you'd get 6 to 4. So 15 to 4 is what we're looking at. The x is 15 and the z is 4.
How do we get 15 again?
We had to get a common connecting number in the middle. And so it's kind of like a common denominator idea. And so we multiplied this one by 3, and we multiplied this one by 2. And that's how we got the 15 to 6. So in other words, 5 to 2 is the same thing as 15 to 6. 3 to 2 is the same thing as 6 to 4. So then we can connect them together. Right, so I could have replaced this with 15 to 6 and replaced this with 6 to 4. And then you can say 15 goes to 4. That's the idea of what we're trying to do here.
Oh, okay.
Which of the following is the solution statement for the inequality shown below? If you were to ignore all this stuff over here, what would you do to solve the one on the right? You would subtract 1, right? But instead of ignoring the one on the left side, what if we just subtract it on that side too? So negative 6 is less than negative 3x, which is less than 9. How would you get rid of that negative 3? Divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3, giving me 2x and negative 3. What happens to the signs because you divide by a negative number? Thank you. And the only answer up there that matches that one is letter H. Yes, they did flip the whole thing over, right? They picked it up and they flipped it over, trying to confuse us. But we didn't fall for it. Formula for the surface area of the rectangular solid shown below is, okay, that's right. You're basically finding all the areas of all the sides, add them all up, by doubling the dimensions of all of them. So 2L, 2W, 2H. What happens? What happens to the whole thing? So you have 2 times 2L times 2W plus. I'm hoping that you will see a pattern here. Oops. Something that you can pull out of all of these new terms. What do you see in the 3 circled green terms? Something new. Is there anything you could pull out of each one of those terms that would take us back to the beginning? That would take us back to the beginning. I want to get back to 2LW, 2LH, 2WH. What can I pull out of every one of those? 4. That's right. I'll show you right here. 2 times 2 is 4. So it's 4 times bigger. Every one of those has that extra 2 times 2 in it. A dog eats 7 cans of food in 3 days. 7 cans of food in 3 days. Okay. At this rate, how many cans of food does the dog eat in 3 plus D days? So that rate has to be the same as x over 3 plus D. Any ideas how we solve for x? Cross multiply, you say? All right. So if I multiply those, I get 21 plus 7D. And then those, I get 3x, and I can divide by 3 on both sides. Do we have any winners? So what's 21 over 3? 7, so that gets rid of those 3 choices. And then we have this, so there's your winner right there. Do I need that back? Okay, yeah. Let me know if I go too fast and get rid of something on screen you're copying down. I apologize if I go too fast. We're getting close to halftime. Okay, Kelly asked 120 students about skiing. The results of the poll are shown in the table below. Have you skied either cross country or downhill? Yes, no. If you answered yes to question 1, did you ski downhill? Yes, no. If you answered yes to question 1, did you ski cross country? Okay. After completing the poll, Kelly wondered how many of the students polled had skied both cross country and downhill. Okay, so what's 28 plus 45? 73, right? Okay. How come that doesn't equal 65?
Whoa.
Yes, say it.
What?
Say it.
Because some people
They did both, didn't they? How many?
8.
8, thank you very much. 8 people were double counted. 8 people were double counted. All I had to do was subtract the total that said yes. Does that make sense? Square below is divided into 3 rows of equal area. In the top row, the region labeled A has the same area as the region labeled B. In the middle rows, the 3 regions have equal areas. In the bottom row, the 4 regions have equal areas. What fraction of the square's area is in a region labeled A? Now, I know the temptation is to say 1/2 plus 1/3 plus 1/4. Now that's a good strategy, but that's not half of the entire square. That's not 1/3 of the entire square. That's not 1/4 of the entire square. What is it? Based on the fact that you see 1, 2, 3 rows. Isn't this 1/2 of 1/3 of the entire square? Same thing with this one. Same thing with this one. So we do want to add up. What fractions do we want to add up? Well, 1/2 times 1/3 is 1/6. 1/3 times 1/3 is 1/9. 1/4 times 1/3 is 1/12. These are the fractions we want to add together. And I'm sure you're pretty good with a calculator and can start adding, right? I would do it with my calculator, but it's missing.
Why can't you do
Go for it.
1/2, 1/3, 1/4 again?
Because if you said 1/2, you're assuming that that's half of the entire square. Like this. This is half. And we don't want half. We want half, but just of one row. And since there are 3 rows, we have to take that into consideration. And there might be another strategy. I mean, but I'm sure several of you just typed on your calculator, got the decimal version, and then hit the fraction button and worked backwards to 13/36, instead of trying to, do it the Algebra 1 way by, getting common denominators or, multiplying by 6, top and bottom, multiplying by 4, top and bottom, multiplying by 3, top and bottom. I'm sure many of you were not thinking common denominators when you have the machine. Now, could you do this differently? Yeah, you could divide that thing up into 36 little pieces. You could get the common denominator, and then you could figure out how many of them you had in A. Any other strategies somebody thought of? I think that would be the easiest thing, but I'm sure there's something else.
If you just did the 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, found the common denominator equal to 12, and then added them.
Then multiply by 1/3 at the end,
Yeah.
you would be fine. You would be fine. Should be. There shouldn't be any problem with that strategy. Okay. Yes?
Do you teach any sophomores?
I do have 2 sophomores.
Like in all your classes?
All of my classes, yes. I have mostly juniors and seniors. So I have 2 sophomores. Is there a particular reason? Okay. Now, would you agree that I can split this into three rows? So each one of those rows is 1/3 of the whole. Okay? Now, out of that, in the first row, which represents 1/3 of the entire thing, half of it is in letter A. So that represents 1/2 of 1/3, which is 1/6 of the entire, of the whole big square. Okay, because the way they have it, they split it into 3 equal rows. So that's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Top, middle, and bottom. And then we're looking at the picture saying, well, in that top 1/3, we have half in A. So that's why we did half times 1/3. And then in the next 1/3, only 1 out of the 3 is A. And in the bottom, we have 1 out of 4, which is A. So that's why we did that and then added them up. I was just showing you how you could do it manually instead of by calculator. Most of you will probably reach for the calculator, add 1/6, 1/9, 1/12, and then do the fraction button to convert it back to a fraction. That's probably what a lot of you will do. Okay, so this might be new to people. So they're starting off with the sine function. That would be this one right here. Sine goes through the origin. The other one looks like a cosine function. You can see that they're suggesting that there is a shift, not only a horizontal shift, but also a vertical shift. Or they're suggesting it. But when I look at the picture, it only looks like it moved left and not up and down. So if it did not move up and down, what would the vertical shift be?
0.
Doggone it, they gave away the answer. You didn't even have to think about the horizontal shift. Now, it does make sense that A has to be negative because it is going left. The way they have written it, it does make sense. But they didn't even give you a good choice for B. At least one of the other answers should have had B equals 0 to try to confuse you. Now, what's interesting is, based upon the way they have written this, I actually think their answer is wrong. If A is a negative number, let's suppose you say it's -2. That would force this to say x minus 2, which actually would be a shift to the right. Oh, I see what they're doing. Whoa. If that's the truth, then they're saying that this got shifted up to here. Oh, they tricked you by thinking it was the closest one and making you think to the left, but it wasn't. It was really a shift to the right. Boy, that's an evil trick right there. Now, they were kind enough to allow the vertical shift to really answer the question.
What did they draw the image like that? It's so weird.
That is, it could go right or left. So we really had to pay attention to the vertical shift first. And hopefully people would choose the vertical shift and not even pay much attention to the horizontal. But first I thought they were giving me the wrong shift until I realized they were going the other direction. Which of the following, we'll get through 58, 59, 60, and then take a break, because I know you need one. Which of the following number line graphs shows the solution set to the inequality? Okay, absolute value. Whoa, wait a second. What do we know about every absolute value in the universe? It is not negative. Okay? It is either equal to 0 or it is bigger than 0. How the heck could you have the distance between 2 points be smaller than -1? You can't. Right, DNA. Yeah, that's impossible. Now,
Well, I don't know if you add the 5 to it, then absolute x is less than 4.
okay. If you want me to work out the algebra, I can show that to you. So we can split this into x minus 5 is less than -1. Since it's less than, that would be and x minus 5 is greater than +1. Okay, so if I solve the first one, by adding 5, that would be x is less than 4. If I solve the second one, it would be x is greater than 6. Can you name a number in the universe which is less than 4 and also greater than 6 at the same time? Okay? It's the and that causes it to be at the same time. Back in your Algebra 2 days, my trick that I tried to get kids to remember was this. Less than. That was the trick I tried to get people to remember. Okay? The other one, just if you're curious, is greater. more than. Okay, so that was my way to kind of help kids remember which one was the and which one is the or. But what I was gonna ask, what is letter F? What is that inequality? So I know that it's greater than 4, and I know that it's less than 6, but it is the and. It's the overlap of the two. So how do I write that as this inequality?
X is in between. It's like 4 is less than X, which is less than 6.
So 5's in the middle, right? Okay. Now, for those of you who don't know, what this is saying is all points within so many units of 5. Now, going from 5 to 4 and from 5 to 6, how many units have you gone left? How many units have you gone right? You've gone 1 unit, right? 1 unit left, 1 unit right. So if this question had looked exactly like this, the answer would have been letter F. But it wasn't. They threw in that negative, which kicked us out of letter F altogether. Letter J would have been the or. Letter J would have been x minus 5 absolute value greater than 1. That would have been letter J, if they would have thrown that one at me. Trip down memory lane, I know.
What if you were already in Algebra 2?
If you're in Algebra 2, then you're finishing this year, and there's a couple things that you haven't seen yet that will show up on these tests. These tests go through Algebra 2, so you will be catching at the. That's why I suggest taking the test right after final exams. Take the if you want to take the SAT right the Saturday after final exams. I know that nobody wants to do that, but you don't have any school that you're worrying about. You're done with finals. You can study for that SAT test, and it's all fresh in your mind, and you can go after this test because you have seen everything you need to see. So it's a.
I think it's already full. The May one.
Oh, it. What about the June? On the June test. 1st of June, man, I think it's the best time. I know, nobody wants to do it. As part of a probability experiment, Elliot is to answer four multiple choice questions. For each question, there are 3 possible answers, only one of which is correct. If Elliot randomly and independently answers each question, in other words, it was written in a foreign language he had never seen before on material he had no idea about. That's pretty much how it would be, independent and random. What's the probability that he will answer the 4 questions correctly? So he has a 1 out of 3 chance on the first question. He has a 1 out of 3 chance on the second question. He has a 1 out of 3 chance on the third question. He has a 1 out of 3 chance on the fourth question. Because they are independent, what am I allowed to do with those 3 fractions? Multiply them, which means 1 out of 81. That is his probability. Now,
Wait, shouldn't it just be a 25% chance?
okay, now, there's 4 multiple choice questions. Each question has 3 answers. So 1 out of 3 on each question.
Okay.
Now, please do not misunderstand what this question is asking. It does not say what is the probability that he will get a single question correct. It's not what it says. It says all 4 questions correct. All 4 questions have to be answered correct. He would have a 1 out of 81 shot at it. I mean, he's randomly guessing. He doesn't know any of it.
1%.
That's bad.
1%.
Well, that's why, yeah, it is a bad chance. And so that's with 3 possible answers. Let's go to 4. 1 out of 256. Okay. So this gets into our law of sines and law of cosines question. But they are kind enough to give you the law of sines and the law of cosines. Wasn't that nice of them? Always draw the triangle. The sides of an acute triangle are 14, 18, and 20. Okay, folks, I'm just randomly going to draw 14, 18, and 20. Yes, I know that it's not drawn to scale correctly. Which of the following equations, when solved for theta, gives the measure of the smallest angle? Okay, out of those, would you call A, B, or C the smallest? You should know this from geometry class. Which one's the smallest? C, because it is opposite the... So, my goodness, we don't know this is a right triangle? How do we know this is a right triangle? Yes, I know. Yeah, that was a little extra. Okay?
I'm sorry.
It's opposite the smallest side, folks. So we know that they're trying to solve for side C. Now, if you know all three sides, it is not known that it's a right triangle. They pretty much just eliminated F, G, and H. This is a law of cosines question. Now, in the law of cosines, the most important decision you have to make, these are on opposite sides of the triangle. So guess what? They need to be on opposite ends of the equation. J is your answer. Obviously, they didn't even ask me to solve the doggone thing. They just wanted me to set it up. I know. That's why I said, just like they do in every geometry class, not drawn to scale. You have to use that brain and say, oh, that's the shortest side, so that has to be the shortest angle, or smallest angle. Okay. Go get a break. Take a 5-minute break. Walk.
There's a little extra.